Hello, and welcome to Critical Thinking for the Rest of Us. Today's lecture, Overcoming Biases in Decision Making. Welcome back to Critical Thinking for the Rest of Us. Today we're going to be looking at overcoming biases in decision making. So looking a little bit closer at that. We've already looked quite a bit into this. However, there's several ways to combat poor thinking, so we're going to get even more specific and look at a few more examples this week as well. First, we're just going to introduce the basic concept of trying to overcome biases. Then, we're going to look at several methods for overcoming those. And then if we have time, I have a bonus method for you. So this is me trying to dangle the carrot here. I've got a super awesome secret bonus method that maybe we can talk about a little bit. Before we start, though, I do want to just thank everyone that's attended so far. It means a lot to me, and it's been a lot of fun going through this process with everyone. And after today, we'll be officially 3/4 of the way done, which means there's only 3 lectures left, which is wild. If you've actually sat here and attended all of them, that means there will be 12 of them that you've listened to. That's insane. So way to persevere. Yeah, and if you aren't an absolute rational robot after all of that, I don't know what to make of it. Anyways, let's jump right into the fun. Introduction to overcoming biases. So in the realm of critical thinking, recognizing and overcoming fallacies and biases is paramount for making sound decisions. Fallacies are errors in reasoning that can distort our understanding and lead to incorrect conclusions, while biases are tendencies that can skew our judgment or perception. Both can significantly hinder our ability to think objectively and to evaluate information accurately, ultimately affecting our decision-making processes. So the question is, why should we strive to overcome our faulty thinking? Because thinking really predates all of our actions, and it is the way that we formulate the things that we're going to do in the world. So if we're thinking poorly, our actions might also turn out poorly, just to give one reason. But largely speaking, the process of overcoming biases is going to clarify our thinking, make us more critical in that thinking, and ideally benefit us and everyone else around us. So there's our motivation to sit through another lecture of overcoming biases. There's a lot of different ways, and we're going to look at a bunch of them. We're going to look at a bunch of different ones, in addition to the mini that I gave last time. So methods for overcoming biases, we're going to look at self-reflecting critically, slowing down decision-making, seeking evidence to the contrary, using structured questioning, developing metacognition, practicing objectivity and skepticism, and then finally, the ultra super secret bonus method that we may or may not get to. Of course, some of these are going to look like repeats, but we are going to develop them at greater depth. So first, we're going to look at self-reflecting critically. So critical self-reflection is a vital process for identifying and mitigating personal biases in reasoning. It involves a conscious effort to examine one's own beliefs, assumptions, and thought processes. By engaging in self-reflection, individuals can uncover biases that may otherwise go unnoticed, allowing for a more objective assessment of their viewpoints. So if you remember from last time, one way of self-reflecting critically that we discussed is to internalize our Socrates. So I don't have too much more to add to that from what I said last time, but generally to say this, that if we internalize our Socrates, what that is going to enable us to do is to challenge our beliefs. And that's something that I believe that we ought to do. So how do we challenge those beliefs? We simply ask ourselves first to get very clear, what is it that I believe right now? What is it that I hold to be true in whatever situation that I am? Really try to spell that out for yourself. Often when we act automatically, and our thoughts that motivate that action are either half-formed or vague or unclear to us. So by getting clear on, what is it that's motivating me right now? Like, why am I trying to rush to the coffee shop before I get to work, even though it might make me late? What's my belief here? What's behind that makes me think that that's the right thing to do, whatever the situation might be? And then simply to ask yourself, this is the critical part, so that's the reflective part. The critical part, of course, is kind of, as Newton said, every force has its opposing force, or it wouldn't be a force. He didn't say it like that, but he said it a little bit more elegantly, but that's not important right now. Most of our thoughts have a contrary position that you can take. That doesn't mean the contrary position is correct. That's where the metaphor or the simile breaks down. But our thoughts have opposing positions. And it's worthwhile to also flesh those out sometimes and just ask yourselves, well, what is it that someone else with a contrary belief, what is it that they would believe? And furthermore, why would they believe that? What are their reasons for believing it? That might mean you're just like, yep, they're still wrong, and that's okay. But you've gotten clearer on what you believe and why you believe it. So self-reflecting critically, this is one method for uncovering biases and fallacies. Because, of course, there will be times when you do this exercise and you realize you weren't thinking correctly about something. Next, slowing down decision-making. Slowing down decision-making is crucial for reducing reliance on cognitive shortcuts that can lead to errors in judgment. In the fast-paced world we live in, it is easy to fall into the trap of making snap decisions based on limited information or impulsive reactions. This tendency can be mitigated by adopting techniques that promote deliberation and enhance evaluative processes, ultimately leading to more thoughtful outcomes. So we've talked a little bit about the importance of slowing down our thinking. Now we're going to look at some methods. Generally speaking, when we think in our minds, we're able to think extremely fast. So fast that if you could see your thoughts unfolding almost like on a sheet of paper and it just kind of kept going like a scroll, a lot of it would be a blur. A lot of your thinking would be a blur because we're able to think so quickly. So quickly we don't always think in words or fully fleshed words, but we know what we mean. So we have to slow that down if we want to be able to think more critically and check for errors in our thinking. And one of the best ways to do that is to talk out loud. So some people are verbal processors. Some people already do this. They'll talk when they're alone in the car. They'll talk at the dinner table. They'll talk in the shower. They'll talk in the middle of meetings. It's great. As the joke goes, you're not crazy if you talk out loud to yourself. You're only crazy if you then answer yourself. That's a joke. Anyways, talking slows us down. It takes those thoughts and it filters it through our mouth. And that way we're only able to think as quickly as we can speak. That slows things down quite a bit. But some of us can speak very quickly. And we can all speak very messily as well, as I demonstrate in every lecture. So maybe I should slow down. That's funny. Also, depending on your language, I believe that some languages, if your native language or your home language is in English, Spanish, for instance, is an extremely rapid language. So even if you think in Spanish and now you're talking in Spanish, the slowdown might not be there. So what's another way to slow down? Well, this should come to no surprise. I think it's almost a joke by now, but writing. So writing is a great way to slow down not only thinking, but your talking. While talking is a lot slower than thinking, writing is a lot slower than talking, and therefore much slower than thinking. And so when we write, it takes the work of moving our entire body to get the thought out on paper. It requires a material means by which to transport that thought into flesh, into physical stuff, into ink and paper. And in virtue of that, especially if you're writing longhand, which I would recommend, I was just assuming that I guess you could type your thoughts out, but writing longhand is what I had in mind. You're really going to slow down and you're really going to focus your thinking. So you can think of talking and its counterpart, writing, as mediums in which to slow down your thinking, and really to also think of it as well as I don't know if we can say that people can think two different thoughts at the same time. And I don't know if there's a consensus on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's possible. Or if the speed at which we can think is so quick that it might as well be like two people talking at the same time. But when we write and when we talk, this isn't a word, I don't think, but it's a way to unilateralize our thinking and to bring it into one strain of music, one strain of focus. And so talking and writing out loud, and then of course reading out loud what you write is an amazing thing. Just from a writing perspective, if you read out loud what you write, your prose is going to get infinitely better. But it's not an English class. Yeah, so two ways to slow down our thinking so that we're able to think more carefully. And then just generally, take time for yourself. It's better for you. It's better for everyone. And you deserve it and you need it. We need time to think. Next, we're going to do, again, some of these are like, I feel like I've said it a million times, but that's okay, or I'm not going to forget. Seeking evidence to the contrary. So actively seeking contradictory evidence is a critical strategy for counteracting confirmation bias and fostering balanced reasoning. Confirmation bias is the tendency to favor information that confirms existing beliefs while disregarding evidence that challenges these views. By intentionally looking for information that contradicts our beliefs, we can expand our understanding, refine our viewpoints, and make more informed decisions. So something that I've said quite a bit, or have encouraged folks to do quite a bit, is to engage in materials, media of any kind that is challenging to the views that you already hold. That can be a book, it can be a newspaper, it can be an article, it can also be music. If you have children and your children love metal and you're like, no way, country music, maybe just try the metal out. Or a better thing I should have said was if you're like, no, I only listen to like Beethoven, and your son's like, no way, Pantera. And you listen to metal, you might actually be surprised to find that Pantera is very similar to classical music. A lot of the guitar solos and the things like that. So just as an example that you challenge your thinking, you'll open your horizons there. But anyways, challenging our beliefs, very important. Something else to keep in mind as well. I don't know if this is timely or not. I'm just saying it. When we engage with the beliefs, the thoughts, and the arguments of the views that we don't respect or value or agree with or whatever it might be, it's challenging. It's really hard to do because we don't feel like it. It's like, there's a lot of resistance there. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that when you do this, and you just confirm, through careful scrutiny, your position that you're holding, what that enables you to stop being, if you will, is someone who is reactionary. So someone who's reactionary is someone that you hear something that they don't like or believe, and then they react to it. But you're just kind of like automatically, and it's usually with distaste or anger or whatever it might be. That makes sense in a lot of cases to be reactionary. But in the intellectual field, or at least at the age that we're all at, being reactionary it's very depowering. And it's depowering because it means that our actions in relations to others are not our own, but rather predicated by opposing viewpoints. I hope that makes sense. But what I mean by that is like we don't act in ways that we're the governor of, the author of. We react in ways that others act towards us. And so if we're reactionary, we actually lose a little bit of our freedom as agents, I would argue. And so by engaging in information and views that we don't like, we're no longer reactionary because we approach opposing viewpoints knowing that viewpoint already. We don't react to it. We're able to think through it. We're able to engage it. And then maybe from that point resist it. Maybe that's the thing to do. But I did want to point that out because you could ask the question like, well, why should I care? Why do I care if I know I'm right? This is one argument to try to motivate you, is it increases your individual autonomy and reduces that reactionary impulse that a lot of us have. A little bit more concrete, and this takes us kind of into the discipline of philosophy, and I think it's something that's really great about my field, is almost from the beginning, when you study philosophy academically, the expectation is that you, again, this isn't unique just to philosophy. I'm not trying to say that, but from the beginning, you lay out an argument, you have a stance, you have a view on something like what does it mean to observe beauty, or how do I know that there are other minds in the world besides my own, whatever. You take a stance, and the expectation is that you also offer a counter argument to your stance, and then ideally rebuke it or show your stance relative to that counter argument. So a lot of the times with my students, they have that requirement in their essays. Don't forget a counter argument. You're going to lay out a stance to me, but give me a counter argument. And they'll pick something relatively weak that can kind of be brushed aside. That's not what we're after here. So something that's really great about philosophy is, especially as an academic discipline, is with those counter arguments, it's almost as if all the work is in the counter argument, because what you spend your whole time writing out a logical argument of some kind, and then you're expected to try to demolish it, which is insane. But really, this is what you do. It's no similar than the sciences. You come up with as strong a hypothesis as you can, and then you try to disprove it. That's just philosophy, natural philosophy. Like, that's the whole history of it, is you come up with an idea. But why would you want to do this, right? Like, you try to find the most menacing, powerful argument just to destroy your own thinking. The benefit of this is that you expose the weak points in your own reasoning. You expose the own weak points in your own argument and your own beliefs. If you can find that thing which would absolutely demolish your thinking, and then you're able to respond to it, now think about how strong you are after the fact in terms of your ability to argue for your position. See what I mean? So the counter argument and just the kind of generally combative nature that you find in academic philosophy is supposed to come from a place of love. And that place of love is, if I can find the weakest point in your armor as an interlocutor, and I can point it out to you, I'm participating as a friend and saying, hey, here's your weak point. And, maybe I offer a way to fix it, or it's like, maybe you need to take a different approach, or maybe that's not a weak point and I was mistaken. But coming up with counter arguments just in general about our views is a really great way of really understanding, do I need to jump ship? Do I have a leak in the hull, or is everything okay? So yeah, counter arguments. Very fun, but also bizarre. I think it's crazy to spend your whole time writing up a paper or coming up with a view and then being like, cool, now let's destroy it. But it does come from a place of love, and it's a constructive enterprise as well. So using structured questioning. So structured questioning is a powerful method for scrutinizing assumptions and reasoning, enabling individuals to dissect arguments and identify potential fallacies or biases. This technique involves using a series of targeted questions designed to clarify thoughts, challenge beliefs, and promote deeper understanding. Among the most effective structured questioning techniques are Socratic questioning techniques, methods which encourage critical dialogue and self-examination. I can't get away from this guy, Socrates. So I want to offer two more focused, practical ways of questioning in a Socratic manner. So I'll let you know too. What I'm about to share with you is the half-baked version of a writer named Ward Farnsworth, and he wrote a book called The Socratic Method. It's incredible, but there's two methods of Socratic questioning that I think are really apt and really give us practical tools to implement our own lives. But two methods here. So the first Socratic method is the squeeze and pop method, is what I'm going to call it. And then the other one is the hidden assumptions method. So the Socratic squeeze and pop method goes like this. You have a partner, or you yourself, or whatever it might be, someone makes a claim. And your goal is to try to get as clear as possible about that claim and its validity. Is it true or false? Well, how do we test that? Especially if we're sort of in we're not maybe doing like science, but it's more theoretical. We use the squeeze and pop, or the shrink and stretch method. And what that means is we lay out the claim as clearly as possible, and then we try to see how far how much it covers, or like maximally. And if it's too broad or too general, such that it includes things that we wouldn't want to actually include under that claim or definition, then we know that the claim that we're looking at is too big. It's saying too much. It's over bloated. It's too powerful. The squeeze method is doing the opposite, is trying to get our claim or our definition or whatever it is we're trying to do, our hypothesis, as tight as possible, until up to that point where we realize we're actually missing things. We're like, whoa, but that also counts. X, Y, or Z also counts under this claim or definition. So we need to bring that in as well. If we say something like this, killing is wrong, killing is morally wrong, or maybe it would be murder. You would say like murder is wrong. And then you look at various cases. So if I'm a serial killer and I just harm people for the love of it, would that count as an instance of murder? Yes. Would assisted suicide in a medical setting count as murder? No. So we have our definition of what murder is might be too big, because we don't think that case falls under it. Maybe our view of what murder is just taking the life of another. So that's what I should have said. I didn't say that. But if our definition of murder is taking the life of another, look at the examples. Serial killers fall under it, but assisted suicide doesn't fall under murder, even though it's taking the life of another. So we have to get a lot more specific about how do we define murder. And then vice versa, if we get so tight in our definition of something like murder is when you take the life of another with a metal object, I don't know, something really specific, and then you're like, well, what happens if you kill someone with a tree? I don't know, something like that. And then you're like, okay, too tight, we got to expand it. The other method for Socratic questioning is searching for hidden assumptions. So a lot of times when we engage with people and we're having a conversation or engage with material, especially when it's raw, it's like new data or whatever it might be, there's a claim or there's a belief that's in the foreground. And that's good because that gives us a point of departure. But what we have to do is find the principle that's the more general principle that's informing that claim and try to pull that assumption from the background into the foreground. So to give you, to do this a little bit more justice here, I think it's in the Laches, a dialogue by Plato, where Socrates, he walks up and he finds two people having a conversation, and they're arguing and they're saying whether or not this one person's son should be wearing armor when he's training. It's a very specific thing. It's like, well, I don't know, should he not? Well, he might get harmed, he might not, et cetera, et cetera. And Socrates is like, in his head, he's thinking, great, there's a conversation to be had here. Should my son wear armor when he's training? Should soldiers wear armor when they're training? But he realizes that the assumption that's lurking behind it, based on the conversation as it unfolds, is it's not whether or not the son should wear armor as much as how does one develop and practice courage? And so, of course, he starts to ask about the background assumption about what is courage. Is it something that we should pursue? Is it something we should practice? And then the link there, of course, being at the end of the day is like, is my son less courageous because he practices with armor or not? The answer is no, he's not less courageous. Personal protective equipment is amazing. If you want to do the thing you're doing for the rest of your life, you should use safety implements. But we're talking about the Greeks here, so they probably said, get rid of the armor and just go sword fight. I don't know, but you can see the point here is a Socratic method of questioning and looking for those hidden assumptions behind the claims that are present. Is it general enough and guiding enough that you can actually begin to look at it, or is it too specific and you know that something in the background is informing it? So those are two methods for using Socrates in a structured questioning format. Next, another way for combating biases and fallacies in our thinking is developing our metacognition. So metacognition, often described as thinking about thinking, refers to the awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes. It plays a crucial role in recognizing and adjusting biased thought patterns by fostering a deeper insight into how we reason and make decisions. By engaging in metacognitive practices, individuals can identify when their judgments may be influenced by biases, allowing them to take corrective action and enhance their critical thinking skills. So as for the millionth time, my first recommendation here for developing the metacognition is to keep a journal. I've said that a lot, so I'm not going to say that too much more. But I will say that if you believe me by now, if you accept my argument that writing in a journal, a reflective journal, or a personal journal of some kind is good for you, not only for critical thinking, but for your mental health. If you accept that, I would just encourage you, one way to really foster that practice is to get some stuff that you really like. So, get on a fancy website for notebooks and stationery. You can go on jetpens.com. You can go to Goulet Pens. There's all kinds of cool places where you can get amazing paper notebooks, things. And of course, get yourself a writing implement that really speaks to you. Spend money on it. Good paper and a good pen is something that everyone needs, let alone an academic. And it's something you'll use the rest of your life. So don't be afraid to splurge on it and, treat yourself. So get tools, just generally, right? Get tools, surround yourself in an environment with the tools and the things you need to live your best life. If it's something that's going to make your life better, then you need it, arguably. And you should spend money on it. The assumption being that the more money you spend, the better quality is. That's not always true, but keep that in mind there. And then finally, another one which I've mentioned as well before is meditation. Why meditation? When if I'm thinking of just like breath meditation, where you spend 15 to 30 minutes, whatever it might be, focused as much as possible on your breathing. You can count your breath. Just focus on the in and the out. You'll inevitably stop paying attention. Eastern philosophies and meditation practices, it's called the monkey mind. Your brain will run away and suddenly you're going to be thinking about how you need a pedicure or how you forgot your mom's birthday. I don't know. Your brain will do crazy stuff and you'll be like, oh, okay, I need to bring it back to the breath. That moment, oh, I need to bring it back to the breath. That moment thing right there, that's the work of meditation. That's the actual work, is when you catch yourself and you're like, oh, I slipped, and you bring it back. That's the lifting. That's why you meditate, is to bring it back to the center. Because what you're doing right there is you're strengthening that metacognition muscle and saying, oh, I need to come back. I need to come back. And so some people get frustrated when they meditate and they keep losing their train of thought. But that's actually precisely what you're supposed to be doing, is not only is losing your train of thought, but then capturing your attention again and bringing it back to something, the breath, the candle, or whatever. That develops metacognition. That keeps you aware of your awareness. Another kind of fun thing to keep in mind from a different angle in philosophy, I'm a big fan of the discipline of phenomenology, which is sort of just the study of like the science of conscious experience. And this starts, it's been going on for, hundreds and hundreds of years. But even if we look at Descartes, who's kind of a household name at this point, I think, therefore I am. He was one of the first people to point out that when we reflect on our experience, but specifically in the present, that the reflecting in the present moment of our thoughts, our experience, that has the character of indubitability. It seems to be certain in comparison to when, for instance, I reflect on the past. If I reflect on the past, I'm no longer in the present. I'm no longer living the experience. I'm reflecting on memories. And we've already discussed at length that memories are very unreliable. So something to keep in mind, why develop your metacognition? Because if you're able to focus and think and reflect in the present, that the thoughts and the experience you're having are happening in real time, and therefore they're about as real and as certain as we're ever going to be able to get. So that's just another angle to keep in mind there. The more present you are, the closer to the truth you are, which is kind of cool. And then next, practicing objectivity and skepticism. So maintaining objectivity and skepticism is essential when evaluating information, especially in an age where misinformation can easily proliferate. Objectivity requires individuals to approach claims with an open mind, free from the influence of personal emotions or biases. Skepticism, on the other hand, encourages a questioning attitude towards information, prompting individuals to critically analyze the validity of claims rather than accepting them at face value. Together, these practices foster a more analytical approach to decision making. So the thing I want to say here, of course, when we talk about objectivity, I think culturally now we almost synonymously compare that with being less emotional, or like something about being objective means being rational. If you're rational, you're a-emotional. I think this view is problematic, to say the least, but we're going to set aside the problems that might be associated with sort of shoving the emotions away when it comes to thinking well. We're going to sidestep that discussion for a moment and just try to appreciate the fact that it is true that the emotions, they color our reasoning. They give it flavor, and that's good. We can agree on that. Flavor is good, unless, I don't know, maybe you don't like that. I like that. Nevertheless, sometimes it's over-flavored. Sometimes the emotions are a little overbearing, and it starts to color our reasoning in a way in which we begin to do things like making appeals to emotions and our reasoning, and it goes too far. So one thing to do in that instance, this kind of falls under the umbrella of taking time for yourself, but to really pause, give yourself almost by default through training the grace of taking a couple seconds before you draw a conclusion, before you respond, whatever it might be. It's okay to take time for yourself. And it's okay if things are a little slow and no one's speaking and it's awkward. That's okay. Because we deserve the time to think. So when we take the time to think, we think well, and when we think well, we have a positive influence on ourselves and others. Therefore, just do it, right? There's my argument. So one way of practicing objectivity is to pause before reacting. This goes both ways, though. So the other way it goes is this, and this kind of falls more away from the objectivity into the skepticism piece here, is that the emotions color ourselves. So this past example I just used, I was thinking of, reacting maybe in a negative way. Remember, we don't want to be reactionary, so I had that in my mind. But there's the other side where the emotions can be, make us too happy, and they color us, and again, make us not rational creatures. In fact, the Stoics, whom I really enjoy, they were skeptical of the emotions. They're famously known for being kind of skeptical of the emotions, and they were not just skeptical of the negative ones. They thought that being overly happy and excited, like when you drink too much coffee or all these things, or you're really amped up by your pleasures, this is not good either. It's unsettling as well. And so the Stoics were really skeptical of the emotions on both sides. And so something that we can do is when we're excited about something, when we're ready to go, we're like, oh yeah, this is awesome, and you're feeling really overwhelmed, take a second just to ask yourself, well, why am I feeling this way? Is this the way that I need to be feeling right now? Is an appropriate emotional reaction to the world that I'm in? Is it too much, et cetera, et cetera? And just be it. And I don't say that to be like, I don't want people to feel happy or anything, but because you can take a pause and be like, yep, it's still awesome, and that's great too. But just arresting the moment a little bit so that your reasoning faculty is the one that's governing the emotions and the desires is all I'm suggesting. That is another way to practice skepticism. So slowing down, taking a pause when we're confronted with things we don't like, and then vice versa when we're confronted with things that we do like. That's a great way of practicing objectivity and skepticism. So the good news is we have time now to talk about the bonus method. I mentioned this. I don't know if anyone remembers, but I mentioned the 6 thinking hats method. Like I only mentioned it in the last lecture, or maybe the one even before that, I think. I don't know a lot about the 6 thinking hats method, but it looks really awesome. And so I wanted to share it with you. And so this is more of an invitation of, take it for what it is and, maybe do some independent research to see how you can use it. But the idea is very simple. The 6 thinking hats is a framework or a method in which you assume or you accept that generally our thinking happens in 6 different forms. So we have what's known as big picture thinking. We have facts and information thinking. We have feelings and emotions thinking, negative thinking, positive thinking, and then finally new ideas or brainstorming thinking. What's so fascinating about this is that I'm just realizing this now, saying it out loud, that you can almost typify certain personalities or people based on the predominance of their thinking method, the one they like the most. I think mine, for example, is big picture. I think I'm a big picture guy, and I gotta come back down to earth. So, anyways, you break up these 6 ways of thinking, and then of course you color code them. Why do you color code them? Well, because then you can look at, and this is what the authors or the people that developed this method have done, is you can look at instances in which we're applying our thinking skills, and then the relative order that we ought to follow in order to execute that process as best as possible. And so basically they're offering different sequences of using these different kinds of thinking to maximize our thinking efficiency, or however you want to say that. So the initial ideas, choosing between alternatives, identifying solutions, quick feedback. Again, obviously, this could be several lectures on its own, and so I would just want to offer it to you here so you can kind of take it and maybe experiment with it on your own. But for instance, initial ideas is blue, white, green, blue. So that would be big picture thinking, facts and information, new ideas, and then going back to the big picture. A common theme throughout all of the 6 methods, these different patterns and sequences, is that they always start big picture and they end big picture. Another set here is strategic planning, process improvement, solving problems, and then performance review. Again, all kinds of thinking sequences that we engage in. Thinking of those engagements through the lens of these thinking hats might make that process easier. I was thinking specifically of performance reviews. We all go through performance reviews. Some of us manage people, some of us are managed by people. And then so understanding the flow of the thinking that is optimal for that kind of engagement could be beneficial, especially if I'm thinking specifically from a managerial perspective. You start big picture, and then you go into the feelings and the emotions, and then the positive, the negative, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so it's time for some reflection questions. First, from the methods we've discussed, are there some that you're already implementing personally? What about in the workplace? 2, what are some additional methods we haven't discussed for overcoming biases? 3, is it possible, do you think, to nearly eliminate one's biases? Would it even be desirable to do so? We have 3 lectures left. The next lecture will be exploring theories of truth. This lecture is going to be very hard for me. It's going to probably be pretty difficult for you, because it probably means I won't be speaking or thinking very clearly at all. We're really going to basically be doing probably about the most high-level philosophy that we can, looking at different theories of truth, where they are accurate, where they shine, and then where they fall apart. The lecture after that is when we talk about mastering critical thinking in science, which is incredibly important. Our last lecture will be critical thinking in everyday life, and that'll be a nice kind of touching way to sum up and look at everything we've been doing and why it's relevant. Thank you so much for coming out, and I will see you in a couple weeks, and I appreciate you.